picture this. A man and his giant scorpion against the world. That is pretty much exactly what it feels like when you are playing Herald of Agony Stormreign Champion. In this video today, I'm going to go through some pros and cons, some offense and defense, as well as all the gearing. Big pros about this build. It's insanely tanky. It feels like you're doing all the damage, or at least you have this symbiotic relationship with your Herald of Agony where you hit him up with the poison and he knocks him down. So it's like, it's really comfy. I never feel like I have this random minion just doing his own thing. I feel like I'm lining them up and he's like my bowling ball. You know what I mean? So that's been really fun. Absolutely surprising for me, a non-minion loving player, because it just doesn't feel like that. You can do Maven and 20 Simulacrum on a 20 Exalt budget. There's a lot of room for improvement from there to try to push even further in the Simulacrum, etc. You can do all map mods, including no regen, although for that you probably still want to bring a mana flask, because just for the comfort of mana. And it is really easy to level. Often, the more mobs, the better too. So that's like a plus side. The more juice you have, the more mobs, the more the better it is for you defensively, and the better it is for your Haggy. Some of the cons though. Sometimes, because of your life gain on hit is through your beam frequency on your Stormreign, around corners, you can have issues with your beams like touching. So you want to make sure that you're either putting the beams far enough ahead or really watching like for those maps with those finicky corners, right? You don't want to get too overwhelmed and find yourself getting slapped because you're not doing any life gain on hitting because a beam isn't touching. Any kind of proximity bubbles are insanely annoying because you have to use Convocation to call Herald of Agony to you to get him underneath to kill anything. Maven's last phase with the beams disables your life gain on hits, so you'll want to bring a third life flask for that just to cover if you do get hit. And you'll take out a Sulfur Flask. For example, coloring the chest piece can be a little rough, but if they keep in Scourge, it'd be insanely easy. And even if they don't, it's not that hard to do 5 off color with Harvest or Jewelers or Verici, etc. There are many ways to do this. And sometimes there's so much Stormreign on the ground, it can be hard to see ground effects, but like 99% of the time that doesn't matter because you could just like tank most of the stuff. So generally it's okay, but if there's something that you want to dodge out of, and you may have a slightly difficult time seeing it with like 50 Stormreign arrows going up with a bunch of beams going back and forth, just pew 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 pew. Those are really the only downfalls I've had with this build. Like, it has such little cons in that I guess you could say you don't move the fastest, but like, you know, if you can just take all the hits, who cares about how fast you can move, right? Am I right? I mean, okay. Some people, you know what I mean. I'm also going to want to talk about some notable gems because there are a couple alt quality gems that would make a nice difference in the build. And again, it still meets that 20x budget. So Stormreign is the fastest applicator of poison, and it's massive for life gain on hit. The anomalous Stormreign would give you 10% more beam frequency, which is more life gain on hit and faster applications of poison. Life gain on hit is one of our big defenses. As you see in this video, I'm running like 5,400 life right now to 5,200 life, depending on what I was testing. And the life gain on hit makes it so like I'm really not scared to stand in anything. It feels pretty comfy to stand in the majority of things. The Divergent is the +2 mana, which means no more issues with mana ever. I have a Divergent Herald of Agony, so that gives me 20% poison application. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't really know if I need it, but I feel like for those maps that have 50% chance to avoid poison, it just is that extra little, you know, icing on top kind of thing. And the last one I want to talk about is Herald of Agony uses Anomalous Pierce, which pierces 2 additional targets. So that's going to make your whole Asenath's gloves just pop off and really flourish. So, time to break down the gearing. And this is, honestly, my favorite part of this build. It's kind of crazy, but it is. We're going to start off with the weapon, the Quill Rain. This is where the Storm Rain is going to go because Storm Rain does no damage. It's only for the life gain on hit and the poison, as I said earlier. So you want the fastest projectile speed you can get. Guess what does that? It's Quill Rain. And the nice thing right now about Scourge is you can get a Cull Quill Rain if you want, or you can go for the Onslaught to make it a 7-link and do even faster, even more faster. But personally, I went with the Cull and I wouldn't look back. Onslaught also costs a little more life, and you use life tap to really use a lot of your Storm Rain. That's how you get away with it. So generally, it was a little better to just go with the Cull, and hopefully if they keep Scourging, we can keep Cull going. The second thing that matters is Maloney's mechanism. Now, this is the quiver, and it's the only socket quiver in the game. Here, I put my Mirror Arrow, Feeding Frenzy, and Ensnaring Arrow, mainly to, like, add more Storm Rain and to slow things down, make my life easier. My Asenath's Chant. So this is a trigger. I didn't actually mention that Maloney's mechanism is my trigger, and it triggers off, which is why it's so good. And honestly, I wouldn't look at another quiver at all. Asenath's Chant is another trigger helmet, and it's an updated prophecy version of the Asenath's Mark. And what I put in there is my Sniper's Mark, my Desecrate, and my Spirit Offering, and that also runs on life taps, so I don't have to worry about mana in this way at all. And the nice thing about Asenath's Chant is you can actually go for 3 different enchants if you want, depending on your playstyle and your budget. Like, if you want to play with no Enlighten, you can go for the Arctic Armor Reserve Efficiency. If you want to go for more clear, a larger spread, you can go for the Agony Crawler deals, or has 2 additional projectiles. Or you can go for Spirit Offering, and it's 12% fizz is extra chaos damage. So whichever one fits what you like to do, you can go for that, and it gives you a lot of option there when you're running lab if you want to run it for yourself. Now, the Coming Calamity. This chest piece is really your only option here. It's your best in slot. It's your only in slot, and I'll tell you why. So if you can get +1 socketed gems on it, the better. It currently gives +2 to Herald gems, and I have mine has +1 socketed gems as well. So if I take off this chest piece, I have -47 mana res, because the big thing about this chest piece is your Herald of skill is at 45%. So it can't be any more or any less. It is just 45%. So it is the way that I am making this build work currently. Asenath's Gentle Touch. For these, it's a no-brainer, really. Temp Chains is safe. It's a good corrupt target if you want to go for more attack speed or life, but generally, you don't even have to corrupt it. You can just have a basic Asenath's and live a very cozy time. I have you can start off with Adziri's Step, but then later you could also get yourself some crafted rare boots with some life, move speed, a res, and spell suppression. It's a little less spell suppression than the Edziri's, but like it's completely fine because you gain a lot from it. Having that extra res slot is really nice. You can also put Cannot Be Frozen on there and take off the Arctic Armor, but the Arctic Armor adds a lot to it as well. The amulets. For this, you're going to be looking for +1s. So it's +1 dex, +1 all skill gems. That's generally what you're going to want to woke together, but you can run around with either of the +1s on for a long time until you woke orbit. Currently, my amulet doesn't even have life on it and just one big res, and I'm doing okay. The rings are kind of a big deal. One of the rings in particular, because it is a circle of nostalgia, the one that I get is with the Herald of Agony damage, as the crawler damage, as well as the chaos res while affected by Herald of Agony. That's one of the ways I get really decent chaos res, and I mean, since Agony does all the damage, you might as well give him buff effect over his damage. I think the damage comes out ahead. So that's what I go for, and generally on implicit, I do 25% chance to avoid ailments. The second slot is just a basic Vermilion ring that you can get life and res on, and then later if you want to go crazy, you can Hunter Exalt it to get life gain on attack, and it could be pretty spicy. The belt is also a really easy one to go for because the belt, you again just want big life, % life, and some res. Like that's all you really care about. And the best way to get this is with pristine fossils or harvest crafting. You're also going to want to consider doing some dedication offerings. The lab enchant for your belt, because there is a withered enemies have 6% all res, or enemies withered by you have 6%, -6% all res. And that includes chaos, so that's good for us, right? That's pretty good. I just got that today. It was a very nice change. That is the main parts of the gear. It's not that bad. The gearing is relatively cheap. As I said, Maven 20x budget, no problem. The clusters, though, this is where the price gets expensive. All the gear is pretty cheap. Your clusters, for your large clusters, you mainly want Renewal and Call to Slaughter. However, because of the way the 8 passive minion works, you can only get 2, you need a third notable, and you can only get 2 different third notables to make sure you're not wasting 4 points. So you want Renewal, you want Call to Slaughter. Then you're either looking for a Raise and Pillage you're never going to use or only use when you're super high level, or a Rotting, which one is it? Rotting Claws? Rotten Claws, that's what it is. And you'll never use that at all. Not even if you're high level. That's just a big no-no. You could also get yourself a 3 passive Voices. And instead of spending 5x, you'll spend something like 19x, but then you can fit in some other cool things like another Pure Agony, medium cluster jewel or something like that if you want to go that route. Now, this is where the damage all comes from. This is the big damage. I've been saying it throughout the whole video. You guys are probably like, what the hell? Pure Agony. These give virulence stacks, which give the Herald of Agony the majority of his damage. So the more virulence stacks you can sustain, the better it is. Currently, I'm at 65 virulence. I'm trying to still finagle a couple things here and there. And I also go for Cult Leader just because it's a good second notable. It's good damage. But definitely, you'll start noticing big ramping in damage when you start getting more Pure Agony medium clusters in. And for the smalls, I have 2 Feast of Flesh and 1 Enduring Composure. Feast of Flesh is, again, life gain on hit, percent life, life leech as well. And the Enduring Composure, I hope they never, ever, never, ever nerf my boy Enduring Composure, because he gives me really reliable endurance charges, and I love it. So that I strongly recommend getting in as soon as you can. There is one other small notable, and it is Calamitous Visions. That is a little small cluster jewel that gives you Lone Messenger, which basically means you can only have 1 Herald. All your auras are disabled, but for that trade-off, you gain a metric butt-ton of damage for your Herald. Like, I'm talking huge, huge damage. Definitely a pretty big deal for him, and very cheap. Like, nobody really cares about this jewel, so you can get your hands on it pretty easy. I think we actually went over all of the points in the build guide. If you guys stuck it out to the end and you enjoyed it, definitely leave your comments below. Tell me if you played the build. Let me know how you felt about the guide, and like and subscribe it if you enjoyed it. Let me know. I would love to hear it. Also, I will be live on twitch.tv, so I hope to see you there. That was bad, but yes,